Hey everyone, welcome to What It Flipping Takes. Thank you for being with us today and watching this episode. I have some very special guests. They're close friends of mine and I'm super excited to have them. They both are in the flipping industry and in the investment industry. And they're small guys that make a huge impact in San Diego. You may not have heard of them directly, but they are all over San Diego making huge impacts. And so today, Miguel Rodriguez with Elevator Pitch Doctors. He's here with us, and he also is a coach for real estate and businesses in general. And then we have Vince with GC Capital, and he's a good friend of mine. He flips properties here in San Diego as a smaller investor, and he's going to go through all the ups and downs of going through it. And yeah, thanks for coming today and being on the show. And I'm excited to have you guys.
Super stoked.
Yeah, say
Ridiculously
hi to everyone.
excited.
And so, okay, so Vince, anyways, I want to start off with you.
Okay.
I know you have an exciting background and you have an awesome background and an awesome family and a story that goes behind it. How did you get started in this industry?
Well, you know, I obviously have done a lot in the industry. I've done a couple hundred flips now, and prior to that, I worked for a private equity company and we were buying pools of distressed debt direct from the banks. It was, you know, in like $50-100 million pools. Nice. And, you know, I think more fun, though, would be to talk about some of my early failures that got me to this point, and it would pair well with his, you know, my mindset stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, and if we go all the way back, the way I got my passion for the business, all my family's entrepreneurs back to my great-grandpa. Even my brothers and sisters are all entrepreneurs. Nice. And at one point, they were, you know, my grandpa developed some real estate, some medical office, and my dad developed residential real estate as well. And so they told me when I was young, when I was about 10 years old, they're like, real estate's the best investment you can make. And, you know, I was on the athlete path at that point. I was a, you know, walk-on to scholarship athlete in college and stuff, but I always knew that I was going to do something in real estate.
They were setting your mind up to
for
really
sure. Yeah.
Little pole vaulting or something like that.
I was a football player.
There we go.
Yeah. And so, you know, when I came out of school, it was the mortgage boom. And so obviously we knew friends in the mortgage industry, and I went into that industry and had mediocre success. And it's probably because my mindset wasn't right at that point. My value proposition wasn't right. I didn't see the benefit in giving these people certain loans.
How old were you around that time?
Probably 23.
Okay, so pretty young.
Yeah, so, you know, I couldn't see putting somebody in a 2-year fix with a 3-year prepay, and then they're just going to come back to you in 2 years and be like, what'd you do to me?
Yeah.
You know, or the option arm where they're adding money back on their principal by making the 1% payment, you know. So that, you know, I probably could have used you to learn how to pitch better, but, you know, like I would try to give them these longer terms, but everybody just wanted lowest rate, the market's going to keep going up forever, you know, type of thing. So I left that industry, which was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my career.
And was that San Diego, or was that where you? Okay.
San Diego, yeah. And I went and actually bartended, and I was watching my friends, and they were killing it in the mortgage industry still, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't see the benefit in it. And they were buying Escalades and CLS 500s, and which they both said was the worst decisions of their life now. And I was like downgrading my car, you know, like I'm like, what am I doing? I had a little FOMO, and I learned a new term now called JOMO, which is joy of missing out, which that's what I view at that point in my life now, you know. And Ray Dalio says, failure plus reflection equals growth, and that was a time that I didn't reflect on till way later in my career. And so the next thing that I did, I went into the commercial real estate industry. A friend of mine, a neighbor actually, got me into that business, and I was selling commercial real estate. My value proposition still wasn't right. The benefits that I saw at the bottom of the downturn had happened that time. I like sat it out bartending, and
Because everyone likes to drink, so that's never gonna. It's not gonna be an industry that goes away.
Exactly.
Forever.
Exactly. That's my parents' business.
Yeah.
You know? Up, down,
Bartender,
it's always
be an Uber driver, and
Yeah.
you're good to go
Yeah.
as a backup plan, right?
Exactly. So the it still wasn't right, and you know, but the training there was amazing, and the starting to learn the pitches, the correct pitches and things were good at that time, and you know, a testament to that training. Everybody that I worked for in that downturn, a lot of them don't work there anymore because it was tough during the downturn, but they all went on to have great success. But still, I was being mediocre. I didn't learn my value until my position coach, I was a running back, my running backs coach from college had branched off and done gyms. And he said, do leasing for me, credit back the commissions, and I'll give you a piece of each one of the gyms. And then I learned my value. I had all this training up to this point and made a lot of relationships, so I started raising money for him cheaper than he had. I started bringing big, powerful real estate attorneys to his thing, and I was like, hey, I'm more valuable. And so I went and tried to renegotiate, and he went, you know, he's like, it was a business decision. We can get into entity structuring later or whatever if you want, but it was a business decision on his part, and he was a friend, and we split and we're cordially, and we're still friends. And then now I knew I had the right mindset. I saw the value in myself. I saw the benefit that I could bring, and the next thing I did was when I went into the private equity. And now I was on the other side of those loans, and I was seeing that I could help those people out of that situation. And so the passion, the value, the benefit, it was a killer combo. That's when my career took off. I eventually got the mindset right to do that. And it carried over to where we all met, which was CT Homes when I started doing deals with her, and where I met you. And those guys had a very good growth mindset. They were reading all the time, the type of guys that I wanted to work with. And I had this, you know, my dad told me at the time, way back when I was going through all this, he said, the things that you're learning now will serve you later. And I tell him probably quarterly that he is correct. And it was like a really big thing to me.
Yeah.
And so.
And you put in blood, sweat, and tears with CT Homes. I mean,
yeah, for
I know
sure.
you know, you really learned a lot, and you were there. I mean, God, I don't even know how many hours, like
For sure.
50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, just
Yeah, definitely.
grinding away. So.
But I loved what I did there, and
Yeah.
I saw the benefit in it. And those guys had an opposite expertise as mine, where I could draw on deal structures from all these different avenues that I had failed in previously, and they had the expertise and the you know, experience to actually put those into action. Like, oh, you want to do this crazy thing? You want to do this crazy deal? You know, this is how we're going to do it. And then we come together and had like a mastermind of people.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I'd add at the end is Jekka actually has a great come-upper story, and I kind of view her as one of my mindset coaches. She kind of has this Richard Branson-esque mentality. You know, his term is "screw it, let's do it."
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
It's
you
true.
know what I mean. And she's been through some ups and downs in real estate, and so whenever I'm waffling on a deal, I call her up, and she's like, what are you thinking? You know what I mean? Just do it. You know what
When
I mean?
in doubt, gas it out.
Exactly.
There we go.
Love
Tweet
that
there.
term. And so
go.
that, you know, that brings me up to now, and I can get into deal stories where she's managed my mindset as well later if we want. But you know, I'll let it pass it on to Miguel.
Well, fast forward
Yeah.
to now,
Yeah.
because I want to know what you're doing now, which, you know, you had the best training, you've worked for different companies, you got your mindset straight, and then you felt that, you know, I know you felt that, okay, I want to kind of do something on my own. This time I want a little bit of more freedom in my life. I've grinded it out for years and years and years, and so you went on your own, you branched off, and you went to start a GC Capital, right? With
Yep.
with one of your partners, and
Yeah.
and now you're flipping homes yourself in
Correct.
San Diego, which is not an easy thing to do these days. I mean, it is tough, especially for the little guys who have to go up against these big guys with lots of money. So, how do you make it right now? What is it that you're different of how you're getting these deals? What's your overhead like? I mean, how did you structure your business in order to make it in today's world?
So I would go back to something, or I'm going to go to something that's relevant to like the people who are watching this who might be thinking about getting in flipping, or agents, and something with all your other guests, you know, Eric B., Jonathan Mann, Connor, everything was honesty, right? And there's honesty all around, and so you ask.
I've had some good guys. I only pick the best.
So true. I love all them.
Yes.
You know, and so I guess what's most relevant is being honest. You have to be honest with yourself in like your underwriting. You have to be honest to the agents. You have to be honest to your investors, right? And there inevitably comes a point in people's careers when they're first starting out. When you're first starting out, you're going to hear the most no's you ever hear in your life. And once they hear so many no's, there comes a time where they're like, all right, well, I want a deal. So they start upping their resale value, you know, like what they think to best case scenario. They shrink their rehab budget. They might be buying a 1928 home where there's could be tons of issues, and they're shrinking their budgets down. They're shrinking their hold times down when they know they should be holding it for longer, or I mean, their hold time should be longer, and that allows them to offer a higher price, right? And so it might seem like the right thing to do in the moment, but once you get into that deal, you got to see the opposite side. There's going to be a lot more issues when it comes to exit strategies and things. And
what are your exit strategies as a small business?
I mean, you buy it for yourself, and if you're buying it for yourself and you're squeezing all those margins, you're going to get scared in that deal. You're going to say, once you get in there and realize what you're doing, you're going to be like, oh man, and that's not a good situation to be in, and that's when us as investors get a bad name in the industry, and that's when you're not building the honesty with the agent, because you're going to have to work them back down, or you're not going to be able to wholesale to a client or another investor because you're worried about the deal, and that's what hurts that honesty proposition, and also what gives people a bad name. But if you're upfront with your terms and what you can perform on, that's how you build those relationships. Everybody also on your show always says, oh yeah, I have relationships. How do you gain that relationship? You gain it by staying honest in your underwriting, staying honest with the agents, staying honest to your investors. As Jonathan Mann said on this podcast too, he said there's things that come up that you would never think would affect your business. You're not even looking for it, and if you're squeezing all those safeties out, then you're going to be in trouble. And I can tell my very first deal, we didn't do that. We had our safeties in there, and there was a shooter running around the condo building that we had bought. It was my first deal. Imagine how I'm like, oh my God.
Something that is totally out of your control.
This is not even related anyway.
How do you underwrite for that?
Right. Where do I jot that down?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And he barricaded himself in the condo, and he then, like, the cops, my business partner was driving up to the property the day we were supposed to list it, and that's when it happened. And he barricaded himself in. They broke down the front door, tear gassed the apartment, and this was directly above the unit that we were listing.
Oh God.
And so, it took the HOA 2 months to fix the front door.
Wow.
And the whole time, we were taking him around the back because we wanted him to fall in love with the place before we had to disclose it legally in the contract.
Why is the door shattered?
Yeah, exactly. They'd always walk around the front and be like, "Oh my God!" And
Small stories.
You know what I mean? Like, had we taken all those safeties out, we wouldn't have been able to get out of that deal. And you can't underwrite for that. You don't want to start doing that and realize there's, things you can't perform on, and break those relationships and those trusts that you're trying to build to have the relationships to get continuous deals from agents.
Right.
We eventually got out of that deal with a very small profit because we didn't take those safeties out, and we paid it. We didn't take any of the profit. We paid it to our investors, which then they were like, oh my God, we can't believe what you did, and then they gave us more money to go get deals. And that's building trust with your investors and being honest with them as well. You know what I mean?
And I know you've kind of wanted to stay as a smaller business and not have too much overhead like some of these large companies. And I think having the smaller overhead, the less overhead, it helps, to control everything a little bit more. And you can make those decisions, and you can, go through the ups and downs without having like a major overhead, coming at you at all times. Because this market is, shifting. And so having that overhead and not knowing what's going to happen is a scary thought. So I know you've said in the past you just want to keep it small for now, at least, and kind of just grow with it. So
and that's a business decision too. And I'll give a couple books that will, people can go read and they can figure out about how they want to structure their business. There comes a time in somebody's career when they're building their business to start, and you have to think about taking on money, or do you bootstrap? And bootstrapping's, doing it all with your own cash and, friends and family money, which is cheaper, and, getting that in there. And the books are The 4-Hour Work Week, which, you can build as like a lifestyle business, or you can go out to get the cash. The Art to Start as well. And then there's one called Built to Sell, which is more on if you take capital. So along those lines, we decided that it wasn't the right time with the inventory being low to go out and take on that debt, because you have to spend through it. You have a fiduciary duty to your investors to keep spending that.
Right.
And this actually happened on a deal that I wholesaled a couple weeks back, where I met one of the guys out in front of my property, and he had one of those big funds. And I've been offered it before, like recently.
Right.
And he had one of those big funds, and he said, I'm increasingly doing riskier and riskier deals to just keep the money churning.
Wow.
And as an assessment of risk, I read these other two books. One's called Immunity to Change, which talks about growing through different market cycles, and Anti-Fragile, which is about things that gain from disorder, like a market crash or whatever. And through reading those and gaining that knowledge, I decided for my business it wasn't the right time, and that I should keep bootstrapping. That money will be there as long as I'm, like we talked about, honest with my investors, I'm honest with the agents, and I build those relationships and keep bringing in good returns, and the people that buy my properties love it. That money will be there when I want it.
Yeah.
Well,
I know you read a lot of books, and you get a lot of coaching through the books.
For sure.
So if people don't like to read, Miguel, you love to read, but if people like me don't love to read or don't have time, and I need help, you're the guy to go to. You not only have been investments, been a realtor, you're a realtor, you're an investor, you've done all of it pretty much. And now your passion is for coaching others, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get started in this industry, and where has it taken you?
Yeah, originally with real estate, I started during the crash, actually, or the scary time, but it worked out really well. I have to give a shout out to the Hour team. They got me set up. They're up in Riverside, and Brian and Lorianne, my mentors, they started everything for me, and just, hey, you got great communication, you can do this,
Yeah.
And so that kicked everything off, and really focused on a lot of retail. And then from there, we really got into acquisition. That's when I first learned about acquisitions in general, even what the term meant. When you don't come from business,
Yeah.
what is an acquisition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when you figure that out, you start getting excited about the different aspects of real estate. You realize it's not simply just opening a door. There's
Right.
so many things you can do from the investment
Right.
standpoint. So we were working with some great companies, giant hedge funds, and just doing some really cool stuff. And from there, it just led to be able to focus on retail, raise that aspect of it. And then my original focal point was North County, San Diego. So eventually, when I transitioned down, and started making the moves, we had was able to bring a company down and just really focus on real estate from an investment standpoint, building out a retail team. Just doing all the fun stuff in real estate. But mostly, I think what I started to discover is that as the markets shift and change, you have to adapt.
Oh,
And not just your strategy adapts.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go to the overall, okay, well, it's a buy and hold strategy, or no, let's go ahead and wholesale. They go into that, that's great, but also how you communicate with each other. And I love that you hit on so many times authenticity.
Yeah.
Being honest, because that's probably one of the biggest things that have to shift. You have to start kind of challenging yourself. And that's really what led, as I started coming into the company that I started, or that I'm working with now. So with Elevator Pitch Doctors, I have to give a shout out to my business partner, Michael. He's actually started the company, so I love you, man, if you're watching. Boom! He's my
You
man.
better be watching. Is
You
he
better
watching?
watch. He's watching. I know he's watching.
Comment.
But he's from originally from New York, and he brought the idea and was like, "Hey, this works in New York. Will it work in San Diego?" I said all day long. This is a solopreneur, bloggerpreneur. That's a new thing. I mean, it's a
Okay.
preneur type city. So, and that's what's needed. So was the biggest thing, was seeing the gaps in communication through real estate from an agent perspective, investor standpoint, and how
Which
we
is
could
like
fill that.
black and white.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
for
it's,
sure.
you wouldn't think that it's black and white, but it is.
100%.
And I think that's why I've been successful with working with investors, because I'm like, hello, do you understand how
It's
this
true.
works? And you can't do this and you can't do that, is because they, it's like a male and female. They just, they get along, but then they think so differently,
Yeah.
so you have to figure each other out and then communicate it
Yeah.
through,
Communicate it,
So,
yeah. So that's what really led into a lot of the aspects of what we do as elevator pitch doctors, was from an agent perspective to an investment standpoint. And as an investor, you need agents. And as an agent, you want investors. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the golden gooses that you can get in your
Business.
yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
it's continuous business, There he is, Michael P.
hi, Michael.
There we go. But it's just, and in that aspect of communication, learning both angles of the business is important, but what is it that they need? And that led us to develop what we have, with one of the foundations of our business is we have 10 principles.
Yeah.
10 principles to really get yourself to that, from that ordinary to the extraordinary, and that works in a business culture. But a lot of it's based off, communication. And you hit it on the nose. I mean, one of our first principles, it's be you.
Yeah.
Be you. We talk about the authenticity that you need in this business, because we know over time, when you start, we are so pure.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just like, I want to
yeah.
learn everything. And then over time, you have this one-off suit that you went and bought, even though you've never worn a suit before, and
Right.
you're sitting in this business meeting all postured up, and it's like, how many deals have you gone? It went from 1 to 65 in like an hour. You just start changing, and it starts really, as you talked about, being authentic, being you, and that's one of the core principles we have. 2 are the other principles that are, there's 10, but a lot of it is being an owner. And this is something that you both can attest to as well, is like when you own your own team and your own business and your own company, how we represent that is not just taking responsibility, but also you want to see your company and your team at its highest potential.
For sure.
You want to see them work at the highest potential within their mind, how they communicate, how they live, honestly. It's if they're coming in with fast food every day, you're like, hey.
Have you heard the term that a business will grow as fast as the psychology of its leader?
Yes,
And
exactly.
so that's what you're you're getting at, I think, right now, is that you need
100%.
to grow your psychology to get to that next level of business.
And that's true.
Yeah.
And how do you help with, because this coaching that you've been coaching for a long time. Your
Yeah.
background has been coaching, and
Yeah.
you've been with big companies as a coach, coaching investors and coaching realtors and just people in general. Why would an investor go to you to coach? I mean, what is it that you help them with, and why is it important these days to get a coach? I mean, with how difficult it is, do you feel that they need to be, because of the way the industry is going, that a lot of them do need that handheld right now, or like
Yeah. I think
what
it
is-
works in both markets, and that's the cool thing. It doesn't matter if it's if it's that free-for-all market where all you do is say real estate and somebody writes you a check.
Right.
Let's go to that 06 type era where
Yeah.
it's just like, what are you in real estate? And that market it's just as necessary as it is in kind of a saturated market where there's high competition. You take a market where you have the ability to make a lot of money. You're going to still need coaching, because it's how do you scale out of your business? I mean, the kind of the business principles 101 is that if you can't really sell your business, it's not really much of a business. It's really a job,
sure.
and that's okay. There's a lot of people they'd rather just be a job. But if you create that book of business where you could say, hey, why don't you take this? I'm going to go over here. Well, how do you scale out of that? And having a coach look at the bigger perspective, and that's where we come in, because we're completely unbiased. what you want to do, that's fine. We'll show you the perspectives to get there. And so you talk about scalability, seeing things from different angles. And then in a saturated, highly competitive market, half of the time the negotiation and seller perspective is the crucial key to getting the deal, what they think of you. And it's not your numbers that typically convince them, because the numbers are relatively same across the board in the industry. Some people may have a different yield or cap that they're looking for, but if that's pretty similar, what other tools do you have besides yourself and your communication skills? And if you can utilize yourself and your language properly, and that's where we come in. We'll show you different angles, different ways to build rapport, to build that trust and become powerful.
I'd like to add to this one, actually. Tony Robbins has a great analogy for this, and he talks about, you know, you ever play video game with a kid, and you know, usually they'll hand you the controller, you play for 5 seconds and you're dead, and then you hand it over to the kid. They're like boom boom, hitting all the bad guys, you know what I mean? And they're paying for like 15 minutes, and the reason they're hitting all those bad guys is because they played that 100 times. They know the pitfalls. They know where all the enemies lie. And you know, I even told him, I was like, maybe I'll hire you for my mind coach in the lobby. Because you know, sometimes I actually look to her for that. And this actually happened on a deal that we're about to list with her right now. And you know, I called her up, and I was seeing all these other comps in the area didn't have open kitchens and ACs, and even after all the deals that I've done, and she told me about a deal that we had done 5 or 6 years ago that I didn't even remember. And they had the worst condo another flipper had the worst condo in the complex, and we had the best, and we forgot to open up the kitchen and the AC, and do the AC, the company that I was working for at the time. They hit their over their resale value, if people don't know what that is, and we went under and barely broke even, and I was like, oh, that's it. And so she became my coach to see the pitfalls. And so it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or, you know, seasoned pro in the business, you need sometimes the outsider perspective, the coach, to come in and tell you those things, and that's how the growth happens.
I kind of see coaching as like, you know, like Love is Blind.
Yes.
You know,
it's a great
you've
example.
got that relationship where you're just like pulling your hair out, like your best friend is in a really bad relationship and they can't see it. They know it, but they can't really see it. Like they're just so blinded by love, and you just want to like tell them what you're seeing and what they're like. You're like coaching them through a relationship that they totally just don't understand why it's happening to them. And that's the same with our careers. It's like we can go through our, you know, our career and go, God, why am I not getting this? Why is this not happening? And someone from the outside can look in and go, you know, this is what you're doing wrong. This is this, you know, you need to change a couple different directions, you know, because you're so blinded by your own career, because you're just, that's all you're seeing.
Well, and you've been in it for such a long time, and it's really about seeing things from a
getting
different angle.
comfortable. The reason why I'm always afraid of coaches is because, they smack you around, they tell you what, you know, the truth, you know, and you're accountable to someone.
You are.
So it's hard because it's like, all right, well, am I going to commit to, am I going to let him tell me what to do?
It's true.
Like, you know, I'm
but
my own
how
boss.
Else, you know, do you level up your life? And
Yeah.
that's where, you know, oftentimes when we were talking to a lot of the people, one of the clients we had is an optics company, and they were pitching to Google and Lyft. And so as they're coming, and they're putting these things together, and they're seeing it from a single-sided perspective. And it's like, well, everything you're saying makes sense to you.
Right.
But it's not going to make sense to them. How do we alter that? How do we make it more powerful?
Right.
You know, and if you want to level up, sometimes it's not the deal that needs to change. Sometimes it's you. I mean, you know, it's ourselves. It's like we're seeing it one way, and it goes back to just, well, I want to make this work. I want to make this work. Why do you want to make it work so bad? I mean, we know that we could probably make it happen, but what's in you that's forcing this so much? Well, it's like, I need the money. All right, well, that is a whole different issue. Let's talk about that. Why do you need the money? Are we mismanaging our finances? Are we coming at this from greed? And that's where we're able to open it up, because if you're in business and you're not enjoying it, what the heck are you doing in the business for?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So is that where you guys came up with elevator pitch?
Yeah, we just realized, with Michael's background, just constantly working with so many different people in New York, and myself seeing where the pain was through communication in realtors and investors, because it is black and white. We just, you guys can go to the website, elevatorpitchdoctors.com, and we have a PDF on there, just 3 things you should never say to a realtor. But it's little things like that, because as an investor, you're like, hey, I'm gonna give you, I want this or I want that, or my favorite. One of the things, I'll just give you one of them for free. One of them for free. Essentially. But one of the things that you'll say to a realtor oftentimes is, bring me leads. Oh, it's so broad. Bring me leads. This is crazy. It's like throwing candy on the ground at a 5-year-old birthday party. It's just going to be nuts. Let's be specific. How do we organize this so that you're showing value? I love that language you talked about. Your value proposition. Yeah. And so that you can. So that's one of the things that we came up with. Again, go to the site, download that. But that's where there's gaps that we can help resolve, because we want to see people successful. We just want to see it done differently.
To also add to what you're talking about, when we were talking about like squeezing all those margins, they want to do that just to get the deal, even though it's not always the highest price that gets the deal. And just changing your language or having somebody work with you to change your language like that, I probably could have used that when I was in the mortgage industry or in the commercial industry, but just changing the language of what you're saying definitely has a huge impact, and that's how you get those deals and build those relationships. Definitely.
So with all the coaching that you're doing, you're not only coaching like investors or realtors, you're coaching all different other businesses, correct?
Yeah, so we'll bring in, our company is not specific to anybody. Michael's really good with just the public. I always say just the public. You have a lot of people who are struggling in their life in general, and maybe it's through relationships, or we did a great podcast I'd mentioned before, even on depression. So it's like, how can we coach you through that? So there's that aspect of it. But then from the business perspective as well, a lot of people, if you've been working as at the post office for 30 years, and then you want to step in to build a business, and all the communication you've ever had is, hey, stamp that and process that, and now you have to go out and build rapport with people you've never met. How do you do that? How do you do that and not sound like a post office person?
Right.
And that's really where we come in, especially for businesses, whether it's solopreneur businesses, entrepreneurs, we'll come in and we'll create a culture for you to do that.
Awesome.
Which is great too, because there's also the path to mastery, where they say first you're unconsciously incompetent, you don't know what you don't know, and then you get on the phone that very first time and somebody's like, who are you? And then you know what you don't know. You're like, oh, I don't know anything about this business. And then you become consciously competent, where you're getting on the phone and you know what to say, but you still have to think about it. And then after a while of just hitting the phones, you know what to say without thinking about it, and that's mastery, right? Yeah. And so to shortcut that path to mastery, you get a coach that teaches you how to say the right things from the start. So when you get hit in the face with that first person that's like, who are you? Like, why are you calling me? Because you don't know what you're really saying.
Exactly.
You're shortcutting it, by having somebody say, this is what you say, here's how to do it. And then you can have less failures in between there.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're ever hiring more coaches, Vince is always...
Apparently, I'm like, we should build out our coaching bench, But I love it, because really, you're showcasing the examples, and it's no better. I could talk about my company all day long.
For sure.
But for you being, we're not connected, and yet around the same industries, and saying, no, this is legitimate because it's helped me within my business.
For sure.
That's what I love, because really it's verification that comes from outside sources that makes what we do so powerful and so fun.
And working together and masterminding together and sharing ideas and actually truthfully trying to help one another. I have a core of people that do that with me, and we all do, but that's what helps us be successful. It's not just looking at this industry and going, oh, everyone's my competition, and I'm not, it's actually working together, networking, and finding those people that you love to work with, because you build each other up.
Absolutely.
And I know you and I have been working forever together, and there's other people I've worked forever, and we actually just mastermind or play things off of each other, and just kind of, it really is, it's a mastermind, and that's kind of, I think, how you are successful in this business. And some of these larger investment companies, that are in San Diego, I mean, they do all mastermind on a weekly basis, and they get together and they get all the feedback and what's going on. And if you're not in one of those big corporate type of, businesses or flip companies or any of the coaching industries, it's like putting yourself around good people and really expressing what is going on and how you've gotten through it. It always helps you to be a better coach because you're getting experience, back. And I'm sure it's not easy being a coach. You're kind of a psychiatrist at the same time, I'm sure. I mean,
as you are for me.
But you're right. Many times that's what it is, but it goes back to what I had said before and why we have the principles, because sometimes you're working through your own struggles, your own hurts first, because why are you approaching the deal the way you're approaching it? Why did you say that? You'll be surprised how many things a client can trigger. Even in real estate, a seller, how many things they can trigger in a person when they say things, when you submit a certain offer and then you respond a certain way and you lose the deal and you're like, what happened? I didn't know how I lost the deal. It's like, well, based off what you just told me, you basically told them to get the heck out of here, and it's like, wait, how did I say that? Well, this is what you said, so there's those kind of things, and even like with one of the clients I had, help them lock up an opportunity. The sellers were moving out and going to Tennessee, and one of them was struggling with dementia, one of the sellers, and the other one was older. And so they were just trying to figure that out. How can we do that? How can we communicate that? And so we just gave them some guidelines to help wrap up the deal through coaching. They ended up that it's really about moving 6 cars, had nothing to do with the house.
Yeah,
it was done.
Those are the best deals.
Getting the right coaching can get those deals closed. So how could people find you? Say your either a phone number, your website. How do you want them to contact you?
Yeah, go www.elevatedpitchdoctors.com. We have a download for the Magic Principles, taking your life from ordinary to extraordinary. Do that. Also the PDF for realtors, 3 things you never want to say to a realtor. You could download that at our website as well. You can find us on the Instagram, Elevated Pitch Doctors, and Facebook as well. I mean, we're everywhere, so look us up. We're looking forward to being with you guys.
Nice.
And Vince?
I like to fly under the radar, so I don't have any social media. And so if you want to do a deal with me, call Jekka and we'll come by your property.
Yeah, he's under the radar, so we're changing that. So people can find him, kind of contact him, say, hey, I want to sell my house with you, all cash. Let's do a deal.
For
sure. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope we got you some great information. If you have any questions or anything, just comment on the box. We'll be answering those, and we'll put all their information on here as well, so you can find them. And I'll figure out how to contact Vince for you. So.
Go on my website and I'll email him back.
Exactly. There you go.
Funnel.
Yeah, make everybody a little bit money.
And, my contact is on the site too, so you guys can contact me. All right, thank you.